When we look at rating statistics, we see that a lot of chess players get stuck in their improvement progress when they reach 1500 or thereabouts. If you too are stuck around that level, in this video you will find out how to overcome the number one mistake that is keeping people there. Club players at this level tend to be fixated by their own ideas and pay little attention to the possibilities in the position for their opponent. Did you know, in studies conducted on chess players of varying ability, it was observed that the stronger the player is, the more time they spend looking at possibilities for their opponent, meaning weak players focus the entirety of their energy on their own ideas and almost no energy on their opponent's ideas. Grandmasters, on the other hand, they tend to spend considerable time thinking about what their opponent can do. There are two main ways that this neglect of your opponent's ideas punishes club players. The first is that club players will fail to see their opponent's idea from the current position, and the second is that they will fail to appreciate the strongest response to the move they are about to play. Let's have a look at some examples of both of these scenarios. This first position is a favorite of mine when teaching this concept to club players. When I show this position, a lot of players get excited that they have spotted the tactical idea of bishop takes a6. Their idea is that when white recaptures the bishop, their knight is left hanging, which the black queen scoops up. Black emerges from the variation a pawn up, and the club players feel chuffed about themselves for spotting this variation so quickly and lock it in as their move. Stronger players, however, resist the urge to commit the move so hastily, because they know that white recapturing that bishop is not a forced move. In this position, white has the calm but deadly queen to c1, and black is lost. The black queen is loose, so in this position, white is threatening to play knight to e7 check, after which white would win black's queen. Not only that, but the bishop is hanging on a6, a classic example of a double attack. This example underscores the tendency that keeps so many players within that 1500 ELO area. They get so emotionally excited about a possibility and how smart they are for spotting it. They forget to put those emotions aside and simply make sure that their opponent doesn't have a crushing answer. This is another example that I like to use when teaching this concept. In this position, it is black's turn to move. The material is equal, but it is clear that the position is very dangerous for black. White having such an advanced passed pawn on c6, what would you play here as black? If you are in that 1500 ELO range, chances are that you were very attracted to the idea of queen to g6 check, with the idea of giving a perpetual check after black drops his king back, or moves it sideways. Indeed, if white were to simply shuffle his king and give you the draw, that would be a great result for you, and you'd be proud of yourself for finding the drawing sequence. Unfortunately, queen to g6 check is not only a bad move, it is one of the few moves that immediately loses the game. For white does not comply and shuffle his king, he simply intercepts your check with his queen. Black absolutely cannot exchange queens, as the c pawn is too far advanced. Black must waste a tempo, avoiding the exchange, and regardless of where he moves, white is able to start advancing. Let's say, for instance, black tries to get behind the pawn. White can simply give some checks and start pushing. Let's say that instead black tries to keep his queen close to the pawn. By dropping back to f7, he is still lost, and I do very much like this variation. White can check from c8, and if black interposes with his queen, we can actually exchange here as white. The point being, the time that black takes to round up that pawn, white will gobble up black's two kingside pawns and have a winning king and pawn endgame. If we go back to the starting point of the study position, upon further inspection we can find a more accurate drawing idea for black, as indeed, this position is a theoretical draw. The best continuation for black is the discreet-looking queen to c1, with the idea of checking the king from behind, with support of his kingside pawns preventing it from escaping. Whenever white tries to advance up the board with the king, we check from in front, as now the white queen is unable to intercept. Escaping 1500 ELO doesn't require you to be able to calculate all of these variations from the starting position, not by any means, and especially not in a faster time control. The purpose of this puzzle is to stop yourself from assuming your opponent is going to simply comply with your plan. In fact, your opponent is going to do everything in their power to make sure that your plan doesn't go how you imagined it to. In this position, your wish and desire is to force a perpetual check. It is so tempting to tell ourselves the story that after we check from g6, that white will simply comply. But he won't, not at all. I like to think of my opponents as a 2-year-old toddler having a tantrum. Have you ever seen a very upset toddler in the supermarket? Whenever their parent says anything, the toddler responds with a big and loud "no, no, no." That is how we view our opponents in chess. They are big, loud, and crying toddlers. We show our opponents our plan, they will look at our plan for 1 second and have a big and loud toddler tantrum. No, I don't want to. No. Escaping 1500 is more about getting yourself over this emotional hurdle, more than anything else. When you see a strong continuation for yourself, you need to assume that your opponent sees it as well, and that he is going to be a big, loud, crying toddler saying no, 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 and do everything he can to avoid it. And believe me, if there is any way possible on the board for him to avoid your plan, he will find that way, just as the toddler will always find a way to make a big mess. So we need to think more about our opponent's ideas. That sounds easy. Is it easy? It can be, with a few simple tricks. What I like to do is to actually spend more time physically looking at my opponent's pieces than the time I spend looking at my own pieces. If you are playing on a physical board at your chess club, stand up from time to time and take a look at the board from your opponent's perspective. Ideally, though, this should start to become second nature to you, as chess is not a game where you simply make all of the moves that you want and that is the end of that. After each and every one of your own moves, your opponent will make a move.